Hey guys, Keith here with Two Guys How To's, and it's Keith and Kingz over there. Today we're changing the water pump, or impeller pump, in this 9.9 tracker. It's a Mercury Marine tracker motor. It's a two-stroke, you know, people give you a bunch of different ways to do it. We're going to make this as simple as possible. As you can see, this boat has been neglected. We've had it sitting out somewhere. We had a bunch of boats, but we've had this one sitting for probably 5-6 years. And today we're just going to start off on the basics of doing the motor, impeller pump, get that running. Once that impeller pump's brand new, we clean these carbs out and make sure this motor's solid. We can show you the rest of a couple videos that we're going to do to bring this baby back to life. And even if it's not perfect, everybody just wants to get out on the water and do some fishing. So let's get to cracking this thing. What we're going to do is we're going to take this cover off and physically open this motor up. Let me get this camera off of here. So he's going to get that cover off, and while he's doing that, which is relatively simple, we're going to come down to this prop, and you're going to want to spin this prop. If you hear it clicking or whatever, it's in gear. So this thing isn't in gear, and we're going to go up. We're going to go up to the lever here, and we're going to double check this neutral switch. We're going to go forward and back. Everything's working fine. We're going to put that, lock that right in neutral, just the way it should be. And come back here and check this prop again, and it's good to go. So what you got, you have on the shift linkage up there on your shift control, you've got the shift rod is right here. It goes down and it'll move this area here of this prop. So we're going to make a magic mark on the top and the bottom of this, and I'm going to show you. Come around and let June make a mark on there. I want to make a mark on that real quick. And he's making a mark on the top, and he's going to make a mark on the bottom there. That way when you take this linkage clip off of here, we know exactly where. You want to do it on this side as well too, June, and we'll double it up. That way you can see that and put that clip right back in between there again. If you use tape or anything, this hole is so tight, the tape's going to rip off. So we're going to use the magic marker, permanent marker, and get that clip undone. And you want me to hold something on this other side here? We're going to take that clip off, put this back up so you guys can see. Okay, so we pulled the starter out and we're back in here. And June's going to lift up that cam. There's a little cam there on the shift lever. And you just gently pry that up. And we always use a little bit of WD-40. So we're gonna squirt that up while we're in here, and we're going to squirt this cam pin. And you can see these pliers that he's using. They're long, extra long needle nose, and they're bent. Go ahead and spin them for him, June. And they're bent. These are great. If you don't have them, you always use them on everything. So he's just going to grab the cam that we lifted up, and boom, it just comes right out. And you can see it's factory painted blue here, and that's a good sign. It's got a little bit of juice on it, and we're going to grease this up when we do put it back in. But and you can see there's a main pin in there, and I'll point to it. This main pin that goes through, you don't want to mess with that. If you bang it in, it goes in, and you got to fight the spring tensioner right here. You got to pull that out while somebody holds it and push it back in. You don't want to mess with this pin. It's just that cam gear. You just pop it up off of there. That cam goes right into this notch, and you just pull it out. So now our linkage bar, which is that big shiny bar that we made the magic marks on, that thing's ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop this lower housing here, and I'm going to get down off the boat. We're going to take this lower housing off real fast. I'm down off the boat now, and we're going to take these bolts. This particular unit has these stainless steel bolts. It's got 1, 2, and on this side it's got a 3rd. So June's going to take them off. We're using a 1/4-inch socket wrench, 1/4-inch drive with was that a 13mm socket, and that way you're using the 1/4-inch stuff. It's smaller and it can fit up in here. When you get on into this whole bottom housing, it's a little tight. And it's, yeah, and the bolts are torqued to a specific torque. We might get into that generally, unless we're building a major motor. we almost never do that. We've never had any problems. If you want to be technical, you can get into the actual torque specs, but since he's using that 1/4 inch drive to take it off, and he knows how much pressure that he's used to get it off, he's going to use the same amount of pressure to tighten it back up, and you can't over tighten it with that small drive. If you're using a bigger drive, yeah. And memorize where it was. The 2 front bolts are shorter, and you got the 1 longer bolt is in this back side here. So, and if you can't remember, you can always just take pictures of everything. Take pictures, write it down. We put them in plastic bags, and then we label them that way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold this camera, but I'm also going to hold this up here. And let me get back. Hold on real quick, June. We're going to get this camera up on this tripod so I can actually physically get raw with him and do this. If you don't have a buddy, you can still get this all done. With a buddy is definitely better. So we're going to run this like this and get pretty far back so you guys can see us both join up on it. We're going to gang up on this thing, and we're just going to drop this. Well, actually, right now we're going to click this up a little bit more. We're going to work this cam. Remember the tilt cam? And we're going to bring that up into place. If your boat doesn't have this type of latch, do you have it locked in? This one locks in. Sometimes out on the water it's finicky. This one locks in like this. And let me move this up a little bit. This one locks in like this, but if the motor won't lock in, like we've got a 35 over there we're going to be doing, you can always get one of these transom savers, and it bolts into the trailer right here, and this square end, it's about a 1-inch square with a hole in it. And I can show you guys, if you don't have one of these on your boat, they're great for transporting your boat. This is a transom saver, and it's got a rubber V, and it's just a nice solid 1-inch metal pipe. You can get them in aluminum as well. If you're doing more salt water, we usually run aluminum. This, we're running fresh water on these boats, so this one's just painted metal, and it's got a hole in it, and that's where that pin goes. And you've got the receiver stud to this. The male stud is actually bolted to this trailer right here, and this one's a little loose. We're gonna fix that while we're doing the boat. And this just slides right in there like that. You put the pin, and you set this motor back down, and it rides in there. So when you're going down the road, it's not killing your transom. That's why they call it a transom saver. Sometimes we will add extenders on these, and we'll add a little extender. That way you can get it in, and it'll hold this up. If you're doing a lot of boat repairs, I would use the extender. So you're not putting blocks of wood under here, or a rope in a tree, or your buddies here. If you're doing a lot of them by yourself, you're gonna make some kind of jig for that. So let's crack this bottom end off of here, and you just want to finagle the shaft, and you've got your inlet tube, your pump tubes in there and everything. So this thing should just drop straight down off of here, just real gently, and you want to watch everything. And you can see this one water pump thing is messed up. Hell, you got the shaft here, and you always want to re-grease this when you put it back in. And this is where that little cam gear goes. You can see it's pinched, it's flattened right here. And I'm gonna spin it, and it's got that hole, and that's where that little teeny pin goes up in there. It's not much at all. And you just want to remember how everything comes down. You can adjust this, but on here you can see perfectly, you can see our magic marker marks on both sides. So it doesn't matter which guy's working on it, we're gonna be able to line that right up. And you can see all these dang stink bugs down in there. They'll clog your damn water pump. And they've just gotten worse over the years. But that's pretty much all it is. We're gonna go check the mail and see if that kit came in, that it said it came in, and we're gonna show you how to swap all this stuff back and put this thing back together. Okay, and we got the lower housing off, and basically we're just gonna check up in here, see if there's any gasket residue or anything. Nothing stuck on it. Cleaned out whatever stink bugs, and we're just gonna use some regular rubbing alcohol. It's what we always use as a cleaner. It's cheap and it works great. You squirt some of this on this rag. And we're just gonna clean this base plate up and get it ready for prep, and go check this kit. See if this kit that came in is even gonna match up perfectly with this. You wanna check everything first. and you know, kind of scrutinize it. If not, we're gonna leave this up like this until we get another kit in. Let's go see if this kit is gonna be the one we want. We're back over here, and you wanna make sure you keep that prop straight. This prop, the way it came off, is the way it is. Right now it's tight. When we showed you on the boat and we spun it around, it was a little loose. So we went ahead and just got this picnic table with the grooves in it and set the keel right down in there. You know, you don't want to push it and break the keel off, but it's in there tight enough where we feel comfortable about working on it. And we got this kit in. It's got the new base plate. It's got the wear ring. It's got all your seals and your gaskets. It's got the impeller. We're gonna open this up and see. And it's got your top cover plate with your water pump inlet right here. And I'm not digging that. It's not as long as our original one. If you can see, our original one is way longer, and it's busted up. So this impeller in here might still be good, but if this pickup tube that goes to, there's another tube that's coming down that stayed inside the main housing there that plugs in here when we pop it back up in there. If that's leaking, that's our problem. So this impeller might be perfectly fine, but you know, we're in here, we want to swap it out. But this kit that came, I'm not feeling it. So I think we're gonna have to research a little bit more and send some photos of this to my boat guy and have him ship us something that's gonna be identical. But we're gonna take this apart and see what's going on. And there's a bunch, let me get the camera. If you guys can see, there's so many stink bugs down in here and everything else that's around here. So we're gonna clean all that up with a rag, you know, clean it up, get it out of there, maybe even take it over and blow it out with the compressor. But first, I guess we'll just take this water pump off and see what's actually inside there. Okay, and June's got all the bolts off of there, and gently just wiggle that back and forth, and that housing will come up, and you can see that impeller pump, and that's a big thing to look at as well. You want to see the direction of this pump. These things are all going clockwise, so that new impeller, when you put it down in there and you spin it, and we'll show you how to do that, it needs to be spun clockwise too. So all of these tips are all facing clockwise, and the motor is actually spinning the opposite direction. So we're going to open this up a little bit more and actually look at this this pickup plate here. I'm not really feeling it, and you can see how much longer this tube is versus that kit we just got in, and it's a huge difference. I mean, a huge difference. It's probably a good 1.25 inch difference, and you can see on this one it's cracked right here, and it's dry rotted, especially right in there, and it's going to be hard for the camera to see it, but it's cracked. So this impeller actually isn't bad, but this pickup tube coming off of that top impeller housing is what the culprit is. So let me do a little bit of research and see if I can get another kit ordered to get you guys the proper kit number. And I would hate to not put this thing back together today, but sometimes you just can't have your way. You know, everything else looks the same. The base plate, all the seals, the wear plate, it all matches up. And I don't know if they did away with this particular tube pickup, but when we measured it, we measured physically from this base plate up into that pickup tube that's still in that housing, and vice versa when this is on like that, and we didn't like it. It's too close. So let me do a little more research, see if we can get you the proper number, and we'll take the rest of this apart. All right, guys, we're still checking some number cross-referencing on that upper pump housing, but you can see this impeller, and actually there's a wear ring, this plastic wear ring right here, sits right on top of there, and you can see how it came out. It was wrapped around the shaft, and we pulled it out, and that's now what it looks like. So the impeller's good, but looks like a lot of the seals and everything are just old. And when you pull this impeller off of here, remember, we want to make sure we get the rotation, and you match up the way you get the other impeller in there at the proper angle. And when you pull this thing up and out of here, whoops, gently, you'll see this little, right here, there's a little woodruff key. type of set key. You see that? It's specifically designed, and it sits on the flat of this shaft here. And it's specifically designed to go right into this impeller notch. And you can see these two notches here. You can see this notch, and this sits up on the shaft, and it's going to go in just like this. And that's what holds that impeller in. So make sure you don't lose that key. It's very small. It's stainless steel, but if you lose it, you'll find it. Hopefully you'll find it nearby, but just be gentle and set everything where you can get it. And June took this off, so we're gonna take this base plate off now, real gently off of here. And you don't wanna bend up this shaft or anything like that. Sometimes you gotta spin it and kind of just tweak it. Get that off of there and memorize the way. I mean, this can only go on one way, but I always lay everything flat. And we're going to take this gasket off gently. And we're going to actually see these other seals down in here. Peel that up. This whole base plate really should come up out of here because this gasket is just attached to it. But we're in here so deep, you might as well just take everything off and physically just look at it. And it looks good, everything looks good. I think the problem is that wear washer at the top and this dry rotted seal here. So we're gonna wait for a call back on the cross reference to this, see if we can find the identical one before we actually make something work. And we're gonna get the rest of this out of here. And when we do this, we're gonna show you everything, but I'm gonna go and check the records on this to make sure we can find a longer perch on here and shaft for this tube, and we'll see you. Okay, basically we're gonna pop this off. I'm gonna come in and let June take that off of there. I ripped the gasket off the top, and he's gonna gently work that out of there. And once again, you've got everything connected to this thing, so you wanna be super careful and remember how it all goes back together. You know, you've got your washer here, you know, your little seal here, you've got all of your other seals, your wear plate, your gaskets. So you just want to finagle it up off of there real gently and see if you can pull this whole thing out. Will this whole thing come out? You just got to remember how to get this thing back in the right way. So we're out now, and we're just going to leave it like that. And remember that flat part of that Woodruff key, that set key, it was over here at the, what was that, about maybe a 5 o'clock position. So when that shaft goes back in and we drop it back in, we're going to drop that keyway in the same position as when we took it out. You're not going to spin it and try anything. You just want everything to go back in the same way if you can. If you can't, then you're going to have to finagle it and find out. But we're going to go in, I'm going to go talk to Joe and see if we can get the right number on that. If not, maybe he can tell me a way to improvise this today. If not, we're going to get the same number. That way, if you run into this problem, you're going to have this part number. Save you some time. Yeah, and June pulled the whole shaft out as you just watched. And you've got this little torpedo gear on the bottom, and it's cut with a notch in it, and it's got a nice arrowhead. And you don't want to mess with that because that spins too. You remember how that went back in there, which way it came out? So he's going to keep that the same way. That goes in the back part. And you don't want to really mess with these dang adjustments. You want to almost get it, put a piece of tape on there and lock it in. Huh? Yeah, I'm saying if you screw this in though, you don't want to mess with these adjustments. Unless you're going to screw it back in the same exact way. You want to count your number of turns and all that. So we can't take that off up the top. So we're going to count our number of turns here and make a magic mark there as well. So when we take this off, we can screw it back on. All right, you guys, and on this arrowhead, this torpedo head here that screws on, we counted the number of threads on it, and we just use a small, tiny screwdriver. And you put it down in each one, or a little gentle dentist tool. June counted off at 8. I eyed it by my eyes by around 9. So he's gonna clean that up with some rubbing alcohol and a rag. And we're gonna make another magic mark on this as well. And that'll get us an approximate area of where this is. We can adjust it later once the shaft's up in the bottom end is all in. but we're gonna go ahead and heavy that up the best we can. Maybe run it up and down the threads. That way when you screw that thing on, here, and I'll help you flip it over. When you screw it on, you're gonna get pretty dang close, and we're only gonna need a minor adjustment on the inside controls there up on the cockpit. That's pretty good. So, and you wanna unscrew that off, June, and we can show them the threads. So when he unscrews that off, you can see that nice magic marker mark, and we're gonna make sure we don't screw it past that mark. And that's it. So we're gonna slide this off. You wanna be gentle. It'll come off. And we're just gonna dig into these the pickup tube here. It's got to come off. And just watch everything you do. Take this off. It comes with all new gaskets. We're not gonna start putting it back together until we get confirmation of make sure that kit's gonna work. Like I said, lay all this stuff out the same way it came. And you can see it's got another seal right there on the bottom, and it's got this locking washer that's similar to a figure 8, and all that goes back together. And you want to keep this, let me move this up a little bit. And we've got this whole motor in the air right here. If we would have laid it down, there's gear oil back in these pockets here, and all that gear oil will just dump out. While you're in here, you might as well just put your gear oil and all that in it as well. But we're gonna worry about that later once it's on the unit, and we can suck it out and refill it, drain it out and refill it with the pump. So, but you wanna be very careful, keep the shaft in the same spot, memorize where your stuff is, take multiple pictures with your phone or your camera. And it's relatively simple. The most important part is where that clip's gonna go on the shift linkage and on this aero gear at the bottom. This has to do with the bottom part of that shifter linkage. So if we get it pretty close, we can mess with the neutral and the forward and reverse there, and June can spin in the back, and we can spin the shaft before we put it back up there and then put that cam pin back in. So we're gonna get some numbers for this part kit, and we're gonna show you how this goes back together. Okay guys, let me get this adjusted. You can see this old base plate, the top part of the impeller, had this tube on it. I didn't yank it off earlier, but it's an extender piece that goes off of your other impeller pump that you're gonna get in the kit. You can see how short this one is, and if you pull this tube off, you can see they match up. So this kit is the right one, once I really dug into it. And if you look around here, because this tube is so long, it's actually got some cracks in it, and it's hard plastic. I mean, almost like a plumbing CPVC pipe. So we're gonna take a grinder and grind that off. We're gonna use some heat, so the heat of the grinder will cauterize this plastic, because if we get to cutting it with a hacksaw, we might split it up the side, and we don't want that. We wanna get this boat back together today. And you can see where it physically dry rotted there, and it's not pulling the right amount of water. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna open this up. And the kit that we do have, it's by Master, what is this, Master Tech Marine. And the number is, it's a 46-42089, A as in Apple, 5. And it fits all the 9, 9s, 10, up to 15. So this is a Master, what does they call this thing? A Master Tech, it's a Master Tech Marine. And everything seems to be working perfect. And we got this whole kit for about $37. So let's go on over here to the grinder. We're gonna grind this this tube and make it fit, and come on back over. As we're back over here at the shop, and as I said before, we're gonna cut this tube down, and I'm gonna show you guys how we have it rigged up here. We have this nice clamp here that's holding this thing nice and steady. June's got this cutoff wheel. This is specifically made for cutting metals. We use it for plastic, anything. It'll cut almost anything precise. So we're gonna cut this little, the cuts that are in this tube have to come off. And actually, can you spin that around, June, so you can see the bigger cut, and make sure that we have that on the upside, and that's where you need to cut. You need to get that whole abrasion off of there. So we're gonna let him fire that up, and make a little noise here. looks like it needs to take a little bit more off. He's just going to keep going back little by little until he gets that whole break off of there. That whole crack has to be off. If it's up too high, we'd have to order a new tube. But I think he got enough off where it should go up in there fine. We're going to clean that out, clean those little remnants out of there, make sure you get all that out so it doesn't stop up. But we got a screwdriver over at the table. And we're going to go and start putting this thing back together here. Okay guys, we just got that grinded off and fix this pickup tube, and we're going to clean everything off. That's why we use the rubbing alcohol. This isn't so much bad, but we're going to wipe this base plate down here and get it totally clean, and even all the new parts. You have this part here, all of this we're going to clean too, because they come with oil from the factory. You get all that done because our fingers have been greasy. Clean everything where there might be a gasket. This particular kit comes with a pressed-in seal. Let me move this back a little bit. And the seal's already pressed in. This is a nice kit, comes with the base plate. So even this, we're going to clean this off here, wipe everything off. The cleaner everything is, get that gear oil off of there. It's not going to contaminate everything. So we're going to start putting this thing back together here. Okay, what do you want to start with first here? You got your main gasket, and this kit is for multiple, as I showed before, it's for multiple motors, multiple pump kit. So you're going to have some stuff in here that you're just not going to use. You just match up the same exact gaskets of what you have. Like we've got 4 gaskets here, and another rubber seal that we're just not going to need, and it has a seal on it. This is for the 9.9 Mercury, and this kit will do all the way up to a 15. So just use the stuff you want, and if you can get a diagram or breakdown online and it shows how everything goes back together, that's even better. We just kind of always take stuff apart, make sure it goes back together the same exact way. If it's missing something, because we've done it enough, we notice like it looks like it's missing a wear ring on the bottom, these little plastic rings. So we're going to put one of those on where it should go, and we'll start putting this thing back together here. Yeah, and I just used that screwdriver there for that. Or I can get you a Phillips head. Hey, we got everything taken apart. Once again, we use the rubbing alcohol to clean up this top base plate here and keep all the debris, keep this covered up because there's gear oil down there and gears. And make sure this shaft, remember we had that little key is set up at the 5 o'clock position. If you pull it up out of there, you can spin it. Just make sure you put it back, but you don't need to take it out. So we're good to go. And on these gaskets, if you see them all, they look like they're one solid gasket, but in the middle, if you squeeze it, you see it pinches out. And that's what's giving you your seals. It's just that little millimeter of a bead there. So all these gaskets are pretty much doing that. And we're gonna take that, the potable lube that we have, the plumbing lube, and one of the gaskets goes back on the top of this copper tube here. And we're just going to grease that up. This grease isn't going to hurt anything. It's not going to hurt any of the fish. When you put it in the water, you're going to test it here anyway. So grease that up pretty heavy. And we can show you putting that. He's putting that back into the base plate here with this specific, the figure 8 washer that it comes with. And we're going to tighten this up. Like I said, it's going to be super loose until that gasket gets pinched down in there. So let's just get it tight, and we'll set it up nice and straight before we officially snug it down. We're going to get it adjusted to where we have it. And they came with a new screw, but we liked our old stainless screw, so we just kept our old stainless screw with the new base plate here. And this will move around a little bit and give you a little bit of wiggle. But when you torque that down, it's supposed to move a little bit, and that grease will help, and it will seal. So we've got that taken care of. And there's another seal that goes up inside of here. And did you see which way the cone came out? There's a seal that actually goes up inside towards this tail shaft, this fin back here. And we're gonna grease that up in as well, and June's gonna put that in. We had to use needle nose to get it out. Okay. And you don't wanna, kill the outside. You want the outside not greased. You want the inside though where these tubes are all going to fit together. And let June put that on in, and it, like I said, it goes up inside there, so you want to make sure you check up in there. Sometimes they'll pop down. You got to remove this lower grid down here where the water pump filter is, the screen, but we didn't have to do that. We just pulled it out.
This little,
yeah, and there's
a slot for it.
And there's a notch here. As June was saying, it's a little teeny notch, and on that little pellet notch lines up in there, and then one side's coned and one side's flat. Make sure you get it in right and try it a couple times before you put this back together. But he's going to line up that little pellet to the little slot that's inside there. And it's down in there. It's not real bad, but just be gentle, get it in there, get it set up right. Maybe use a light screwdriver or something to mess with it. And get it pressed in there, and we're good to go with that. Yeah, and these come with these two plastic washers too that we're going to get to. But it's got this other seal. Let me show them this seal. This seal here is identical. When this one gets pinched, it's got these two little round slots, and it's grooved. So it's giving you 2 points of impact right there, and that's what you want on the seal. And that one looks like a wheel, and it's almost like a pulley. So that one can only go in one spot only, and that's it, one in one spot. Put a little bit of grease on that, get it juiced up. And it goes right into this base plate right here. You just want to push it in there. You want a nice tight seal, and that grease helps you get it. The grease isn't going to hurt anything. That thing's in there, and that's nice. That's what we want. We're going to feed this thing back in. Make sure you get your right side up. This copper pipe's going to be back down towards the bottom. He's going to feed that shifter linkage back through it. And we're going to get ready to put this little arrowhead torpedo back on as well. Yeah, and there's a C-clip on the shifter shaft, linkage shaft. It's got a groove in it. It's about 8 inches from the bottom where the torpedo, that arrow head gets screwed on. You want to put that C-clip on there. That's what's going to make everything stop where it's supposed to and not overshoot when you're shifting. So we're going to screw this on. Remember, we have those magic marker marks on here. And we're going to screw that right up to where those marks are. It's pretty close right in there. I'd say somewhere in there. And like I said, we can adjust it once we get it on the boat. We can mess with that shifter linkage, but that's almost 99% where it's supposed to be. We're going to run these gaskets, and the gasket, once again, can only go one way and one way only. And you've got holes in them, so you want to watch up, line up this hole on the same as the base plate. This is the bottom. So if that's the bottom there, we're going to flip this thing. This is going to be on the right side. I'm going to get that little bad boy right there and push it up. And we're going to feed that back over top. You can put a little grease on there too if you want. I would grease this top gears up, especially when it goes back up in the motor and when you're pushing all this stuff over it. And we can put some more grease down in here. Let's just juice this thing up. Lack of grease is what's going to cause this thing to have premature failure as soon as we fire this boat up, because there's going to be no water and it's not going to be enough to keep it lubricated. Right? You can use soapy water and things like that, but I'm going with the better stuff. This stuff's going to stay on. It's made for this specific stuff and drinkable water for plumbing, and that's what we use. Just adjust that little arrowhead. It's going to feed right back down into that gearbox down there. And it's going to take a little bit of manipulation. You know, you just got to be real patient. Don't break things. Don't get discouraged. We will get it in there. We put the C-clip on. We're going to take that C-clip back off. Right where that C-clip, you push this base plate down, onto that seat clip on that shaft, and that way it won't overshoot. And make sure that little torpedo gear, that arrowhead on the bottom, is lined up, because it goes down in one specific spot down there. You got to finagle this tube in there. And this tube here, we're going to lube up. This copper tube, that copper tube is going to go down in that other gasket that we put down in there, that's down in that the upper part of this, the pickup where the screen filter is here. It takes a little bit, but you get it in there. Once you get in there, it'll pop forward. And boom, that's on down like that. Didn't take too long. Double check that, feels good. Yeah, you gotta make sure that gearing is right. All right, there you go. Try to get this thing put back together before the rain comes in on us today. And when you put this impeller in, which we'll show you, we have this plumber's grease. It's a drinkable for potable water. You grease gaskets and water filters and other rubber fittings, different faucets, anything that you're going to need to be greased. It's not going to eat into the gasket. So it's always handy to have this. It looks like a little makeup container, and you can see it's just full of grease in there. And we've used this on tons of jobs, tons and tons. Put it in the workbox, put it in your toolbox, and get some of it. So we're going to use this on putting this impeller, the main blade, back in. It should have a plastic ring on there. You don't see any wear worn off.
Oh, it goes on there. It's this.
This comes with the pressed-in bearing here.
This tube here, has something to it.
It's got another bushing in there. Okay, we're going to dig into this. There's another bushing in this other part of the housing that we're going to show you. With this impeller, we got one of those clear wear rings, and we're putting it on the back side of this impeller with that grease. It'll hold it in. And if this upper housing, the impeller housing, this is facing the back, and we want it to go, we want all of these to be, all the twists to be facing clockwise. We're going to put it in there, and you can kind of look at this. Sometimes they will be in one direction more so than the other. And we're going to spin that in there and line it up and get that notch lined up. I'm going to have to keep going around because we want that notch. Remember, for that Woodruff key, that little set key, we want it at the 5 o'clock position. So let's go real gentle with it. And that's pretty close. This thing won't go backwards, it will go forward. So I'm going to undershoot it a little bit. I'm going to put it at the 6 o'clock position and just past the 6. That way we can twist this thing in that same direction to get it going. And let's try this one more time. The other plastic clear wear ring is down here on the base plate. The other one's on top of the impeller, and you could double check. And I'm going to look at this one more time and see if we can just get lucky, which we did. And that plate is flat, and my fingers are greasy, but the studs that are coming off of that one plate hold up. And let me get the camera so I can show you guys. Once again, those same studs right here and here are holding this base plate nice and straight. And I'm confident that impeller is in there good. The wear rings are good. And we're going to bolt this thing back together. It looks like they might have, I don't see any blue Loctite on these. I think we'll be fine. They come with a washer. The washer's not a broke washer. I think we're okay with it. I would just snug them down. Put the Loctite on it. Chances are you later on trying to get it out of this housing, it might end up breaking, and we don't want that. This thing's not going anywhere up in there. And usually you change these water pumps every year. You're supposed to. If you don't, you're pushing it. I've ran them a couple years, but they really do need, you know, every year to swap this out. And it's a cheap fix for $40 and a couple hours of time. The more you do it, hell, you can have it done within an hour. And you don't even need to take the whole thing off. You can just drop it over there, clean everything, put it back, and slam it up. We're just using the table to kind of show you guys what's going on. And I would adjust these. I wouldn't tighten them all the way down, just tighten them, and then we'll go across with a crisscross motion. That way that you're torquing them nice and even here. And I'll show you from up top. You can see he's going back and forth. He's gonna hit one side, he's gonna go back over to the other side until we get this thing properly torqued down in there. And we're just gonna torque those down. They've got a spec sheet in the book. Generally, we don't ever do that unless we're rolling a race motor or something like that. We're just gonna run it. We're using this 1/4 inch ratchet, this 1/4 inch drive. And then he took it off with that. He's gonna put it back on with that. You don't take it off with the 1/4 and put it back on with the 3/8 or a big breaker bar. You don't need that. Just take it off the 1/4, put it back on with the 1/4 inch drive set. June's done enough motors. He never used a torque wrench unless we're working on an Audi or a Mercedes-Benz or something where we're getting super specific or inside the motor. Just you know, just snug it down. Don't kill it. And once that's all tightened up, that just leaves us with the water pickup tube that's going to go on there. And on this particular tube, we cut off that bad spot. One side's a little thicker, one side's a little thinner. So on this particular thinner part, this is going to go down onto that new water pump. Hey guys, Keith here with Two Guys How To's and the Fish Kingz, and we replaced the water pump in this lower out drive in this motor. And before we put it all officially back on, we want to double check to make sure the water's pulling. This is where it spits out, going back into the water, into the pond or lake or river, whatever you're running. It's going to suck up and spit it out this opening here. But we're going to run air up through this bottom pickup tube, the water pickup tube that goes to the lower out drive, and see if it comes out here strong. And if we can plug these off and there's no leak, then we know that this is good circulation. And we're going to run an air check up in there and cap this off. He's running up into that lower pickup tube in the housing. And see, when I cap this off, it's starting to leak out. And you can see this whole thing, this whole pickup tube popped out. So somewhere along the line, this tube up in there isn't seated right. And we did it before and we noticed the hiss. So long story short, we got to take this whole motor off of here, which is the stupidest design ever, and figure out if we can replace just this gasket that's up in there, or whatever this little flange is sitting up inside there, or we're just going to buy a brand new tube. And it's just copper tube. It's a good thick copper, but just piss poor design, man. The amount of work to change this $20 tube is crazy. So we're gonna get the cracking on this motor, and we're gonna have to separate. And of course, once you separate it, you've got a gasket here that might be still usable, but you got a fiberglass gasket down there it's gonna have to replace. So once again, we're gonna have to order more parts in and wait more days to fix this stuff. But that's what you do. You know, you just keep hacking at it till you get it done. So we're gonna strip this motor down, and we'll show you once we got it popped up here. Not gonna bore you with the details of that. And we're gonna find out what the culprit is, because sometimes the impeller pump, it might not be your problem. We're gonna double check this line here. You see how June's flowing over there with this? He's got a, let's move this back a little so you guys can see exactly what we're doing here. June's got the air hose in the back, and I'm capping the top, and we're we're good. So this line doesn't have a hole in it. It's whatever leading up to this little crappy seal that they got way up in the motor. And of course they don't have a trap door here or anything where you can just open the door and replace it and shove it in. Now they got to make it to where you pull the whole damn motor off and change all kinds of gaskets and pull linkage off and everything else. We're not going to bore you with that. And we're going to get raw on this, pop it up, and find out. And I guarantee you it's just going to be a little teeny $2 seal or something that popped out up in there, and you got to do extensive work to fix a $2 seal. So we'll be right back and show you what's going on. Okay guys, we were messing with the impeller pump, got all that back together the other day, and we wanted to check out the hose as we showed you. We blew air up the bottom of the water pickup tube and out through the top, and it was busted up in the side here. And actually, this little teeny washer that I showed throughout the video earlier, it actually goes on this little flange here. You can see the one end of the copper. This thing's like custom bent, like a brake line. And the bottom's got a nice big rounded flange to where it seats down into this lower housing of the water pump, and I'll show you here. Our particular model has this longer extended tube off of it, and it fits right down in there with no gasket. So that's what was confusing to us. So when we ended up using this gasket on that end, it pushed up over this hump here, or it pushed up over this hump and rode up here. And it doesn't even need one here. On the way they've got it designed, it might be for back pressure or something like that if that thing's under high torque and you're zinging up the river. If it builds up too much pressure in the head, because it's not under a lot of pressure, it's just made to cool it, it might blow back out. But this little pinch washer that crimps out has a cut inside, and that cut lines up with this flange. So basically it's gonna be sitting inside there like that, and then you push this up into the motor up there, and it's a little bit of a BS design because you can't see up in there. We're just gonna go and kind of aim it. But this flange was actually a little bent, so I used the needle nose pliers, and I didn't use the teeth part. I used the nice flat part, and I just pinched it a little bit like this and tweaked it. That way it doesn't cut up into this gasket. Has just a thin layer of rubber. So we're gonna hit this with a little bit of emery cloth just to take out any barbs that are on it, and put it on there, and we're gonna shoot it up in there. Okay guys, and before we put this gasket on there, and this gasket actually it's gonna push up, and I straightened it out with the needle nose, but I can see a little bit of something. So I'm gonna take this emery cloth, little piece of it, and just spin it around the bottom, get that nice and clean. And I'm gonna run this around the sides a little bit, not too much because I don't wanna wear that copper soft. And I'm just gonna hit the top part of this thing and just make sure it's not sharp. And we'll grease this up a little bit and just shove it up in there. And hopefully it doesn't feel rough to me anymore. So hopefully it'll go up in there and seal. And that's why you replace this crap every year, because it's just junk. But we're gonna put this on and shove it up in there. And you wanna try to get this up in here, June, now. And basically I'm just gonna put this on here like this, spin it around, and it gets stuck right in the middle there. That's pretty much it, and it sits in there. And that way, when you push it up in there, it's gonna not fall back down when you try to push it, because we're gonna be putting it in there. We'll put a little bit of lube on here and go with it. Okay guys, we put the grommet on the end of that tube, and I used the emery cloth to clean it up. June's trying to feed it back in. He had it in there once. We took it back out just to dry fit it into the lower housing and everything. And let him get that in there, and we'll be ready to rock and roll with this lower unit here. Remember, that crook goes in and it'll line up in the middle. And you put it up in there and spun that crook around and pushed it in. It takes a little bit, you just gotta be patient. Me, I already bloopered a couple times and had to cut the camera. So we're gonna run this up here, and the problem we're having even with this is that pickup tube's getting hemmed up inside on this lip when you go to in it. So we're gonna try this time, we're gonna try to tap it with a screwdriver to get that seat down in there. And if that doesn't work, then I'm gonna burn this boat to the ground. It's like, are you ready? Because this is too easy of a job to be too complicated of a job. So we're gonna line these. You gotta line that shifter shaft and that main drive shaft up in there. And then we've been getting hemmed up on this little extender piece that this particular pump has. So I'm gonna put my finger up there and line this pickup tube, and then see it gets hemmed up right there. And I'm gonna see if I can just tap it a little bit to get it to fall in. And, man, it works every time we don't have the camera rolling. But man, it's just it should just go right in there. It's just some crap design. Can you hold this for a second, June? This is just crap. So I'm gonna tap it a little bit, see if I can kind of nudge that tube over to fall into that hole. Man, this is too much work. This little extender tube, I hope they fix this by now. Because it's just too much work to get this thing on. We're so close, it's getting hemmed up on that little lip. We can't really lube it. We'll try to move it a little bit, but there we go. And I just used this and I tapped on that pickup tube and moved it around a little bit. And we're gonna check this linkage here. And he spun the gear. This is in gear now because we clicked it up and it lined up with the spline in that motor. And I think we're good, right? And it's pressing up in there nice. We're just gonna have to get the bolts. I got this here. Still seems a little bit like too much of a gap to me, but we're just gonna tighten it up because we knew the last impeller pump is like that, and that way it compresses together and pinches that seal a little bit up there and pinches down on the pump. And no matter what, you're just gonna have to do this pretty much every season because it's just a crap design, but it is what it is. If you wanna, you'll get more enjoyment than you will frustration. So just get it together, get it back, get it done, and worry about it next time. Next time you'll be even better at doing it. I think we had this done by some other marine shop up there in Frederick, and that's probably why it's not right now. Those guys aren't even in business up there anymore. So that's why we just do everything ourselves nowadays. And I'm gonna keep tension on this and just push up on it gently. He's not gonna tighten them all the way. He's just gonna snug them down. And like I said, we'll torque them down, crisscross pattern kind of deal, just to make sure the housing's nice and straight and we're not cracking anything. And it should be good. We're gonna run it back down in this trash can full of water, start it up, and make sure this thing's pissing right. And he's just gonna go ahead and just torque it down. He took it off with that 1/4 inch. He's gonna put it back on with that 1/4 inch drive. He can feel just by the way he took it off how much tension to put it back on. We're not gonna get technical with the Mercury Mariner and Force catalog and schematics and download PDF. Just tighten it down and get her done. So We're ready, what, to fill this up with water?
We gotta hook it
Huh? Yeah, so we're gonna go back in and do the clip and show you guys all that on that little cam switch and get the linkage hooked up, and then we'll fire this bad boy up. Guys, we got the lower end of the unit in there, and June's back in that dang motor, and we're gonna put that clip back in. You can see he's got those crook needle nose pliers. He's holding that pin almost like it was designed for. You can see there's a little crook here in the pin where the needle nose grab, and we're gonna go ahead and put that back in there. I can try to get this light going. Yeah, let me prop this light up in here so you guys can see what's going on. And got a little bit of grease. We'll grease the end of that. It should go in there. We sprayed it down with WD-40 earlier. And we got some grease, and it goes right back in the same exact way you guys took it out. Sometimes you got to reach around and grab that little shifter lever, the shifter shaft there, and kind of move it a little bit to get it to go in. It seems like when you're not trying, it goes right in, and when you are trying, it won't. What I did before is I'll take this screwdriver here and touch the back side of that pin while he's pushing on it, and I can't really see it from here. And he's basically pushing in with the screwdriver while holding it level with the needle nose. And it takes a little bit. It's a little, you got to finagle it in there. Let me get this wire out of the way. Tuck that wire back in there. You got to wiggle the linkage. I'll hold this here. Let me get that pin. Okay, hold on. Okay. And there you go. Whoops. And keep tension on that pin while he moves that linkage arm. Let me see if we can get it real gently in there. Yeah, it's not wanting to go in there nice and straight. There you go. Boom. And just gently. I barely even pushed on it. I just kept it nice and straight for June. And we're gonna tap that crook back down in there, and it's all set up, ready to go. And we'll see if we can shine this light on it there so you guys can see what that is. It's hard to see down in there, but it's all locked back in nice and good. And you want to double check that with the screwdriver. Just push down on it real quick. I'll hold the light on. Just make sure that thing's down in there. You don't want to kill it. It snaps in place very gently, and the tension holds it in. So we got that going, and that's back in there. June's going to put this starter in, which you guys already took out, so we're not going to bore you filming that. So I'm going to hop down off of this boat here, and we're going to have, later on, you can still see where our Sharpie, the magic marker, marks are on the shaft. And that means that shaft's in right, because you can see the marks on both sides of the shaft. June, can you see yours? Okay, so it's on both sides, and we're just going to put that clip back, and we're going to line it right up in there. We're going to check the controls a little bit later if we have to, but they're almost dead on. If we have to, we'll undo that clip again and kind of spin it around and get it in place. But I think it'll be good to go. I'll hold this for him. Slide it up. I think it needs to spin around towards you. Oh no, that little, let him get that nut on there. I'm jumping the gun here on you guys. But he's tightening the little, it's got a little nylon nut, and you can see how this part right here, you see this part, this nice flat part, that's what's hitting this hoop right here. This angel hoop right here, it's gonna push that up when you shift, and that's what you want. You want that nice pad there hitting this hoop, and that's gonna be your shifting mechanism. So what we're gonna probably have to do, June, is lift this thing back up. We're gonna lift it back out. We're gonna tilt this thing out. And what it was is, yeah, lift it up. You can see that angel hoop right there moving. So go ahead and move it all the way up. So I think you're gonna want that thing all the way extended so we can run this like that. Now this hoop here is free and clear. So when he puts that locking mechanism on there, it's gonna basically shift once we get everything back together. He's gonna line that right up with those magic marker marks. I'm gonna hold this hoop up for him, and it's gonna be right back to normal. We're gonna be catching some smallmouth, largemouth, and other panfish here very shortly. I can't wait to get this boat back together. And once again, you only want to snug it down, get it close, keep it nice and straight. Yeah, it's a little bit off. It's just a little bit off, but he'll fix that right now. You want to make sure it is straight. It's totally parallel to that motor. Just a hair more. I'm trying to be a little particular about it, just because you do want it straight. You want that striker pad there to hit that angel hoop and push it up. That's what does it. You don't want to be in the water and have that thing wearing out on you. So we're good to go there. Mark's good. Everything's tightened up and torqued up. We're not going to bore you putting the starter on. And that's pretty much it. If we run into some problems with this linkage and the shifting, we're going to fire the camera back up and we'll show you guys that too. And like I said, you can fix it yourself. We fix everything ourselves. Two Guys How-Tos. Subscribe, like, share, do all that. Give us some comments, and we'll see you next time. Two Guys How-Tos. I'm out. All right, guys, we just got the lower end on. We put the cam gear on that shifter linkage that you watched us take off and put on the other episodes that we did. It's going to be blended into this whole thing, but we got everything on. That's good. And we're double checking this little pinch clamp system that's on this linkage that's actually hooked up to your throttle. So when you're in neutral, you're supposed to be able to pull this motor up like this. So when you get to the boat launch or whatever, it's up out of the water. This particular boat, every time we got to the back to the boat ramp to lift it up from inside the boat, you should be able to stand in that boat and pick this up. It never did. So, and we figured out why it never did. You put this thing back down in neutral, you should be able to lift this thing freely from inside the boat. And in reverse, if you're reversing and you're in the river or the lake, this thing's not going to kick up, because the torque would kick this thing up out of the water and your propeller would be bursting out of the water right here and ready to hack somebody's head off. So the way they had it on this particular little hoop gear right here, if he goes ahead and he puts it back into neutral, it brings that little hoop gear up. So right now it moved that little cam gear on there to where you can lift it up. And that's what you want. So when this thing's in neutral and it's in forward, full on flat out mode in the lake or the river, this thing is supposed to move. Whether you get to the boat ramp or you're scatting up the river and it's getting shallow and boom, you hit a big rock, it's made to kick back. If not, you'll rip this transom out and break everything down on the thing. The keel can take a little bit of beating, but once this transom's gone, the boat, unless you're good at fixing it, the boat's just junk. So it's supposed to kick back. When we got it back from the shop years ago, they never had this thing adjusted right. So what we did is we just put it in neutral up there, lift it up on this cam gear a little bit, raise that clamp, tighten it up, and it brought it back into the normal operating mode. So if yours isn't lifting up when you're on the boat, when you get to the boat launch, and it's not lifting up like that, you can try to put it into forward motion, and it'll probably raise that cam, that little angel hoop, that horseshoe up a little more to get it in. But when you get back to the house, just go ahead and get out, unloosen this, lift it up a little bit, tighten it up, and in neutral it should lift that cam gear up just slightly when you're in neutral to get it out. So we're gonna get this trash can going on here. We're gonna lift this up, put this trash can under here on these cinder blocks. And move these cinder blocks over a little more so the bottom of the trash can doesn't crush out. It's still hitting, the keel's hitting a little bit, but it's in there pretty good. And we're gonna fill this thing up, get a drink of water ourselves, and we're gonna fire this up and show you that it's spitting out all right, and show you that this water pump is gonna work good. All right, you guys, we're back. We got the water filled up in our trash can, and it's down in there. It's spitting a little bit. It's not spitting as hard as I want. I'm gonna have June rev it up just a little bit and see if it comes out more. If not, then we got a problem somewhere where that little crappy bushing goes up into the motor. And every video you always watch, you never see them changing that. That's why we're trying to figure this out for you and get this just done right. You go ahead and give it a little bit of gas. Huh? Go ahead and give it some. Yeah, it's just not, it's not spitting right. You don't want that head to get hot. This thing should be spitting out like an old man. It's spitting out like it's a stream of piss, and it's not enough. So we're gonna cut, and figure out what's going on and come back. Oh shit, well, I spoke too soon. Look at that. June's got the good luck charm, and yeah, you know, that grease that we put in there, the grease gets up in there, so just let it run a little bit. Keep monitoring this head, and the head doesn't seem hot, and it wasn't hot. The water's nice and good, and the water's plenty hot, and all that grease, that, remember we used that plumbing lube, that plumbing grease, designed just specifically for O-rings, like on your filters in your house and different things, and your faucets, screens, and it might have been clogged up in there a little bit. But I'll tell you what, every video I've watched, they've never showed how to fix that piece way up in there, and hopefully that helps you. We're gonna have them go back to, you wanna juice it up a little bit more. I'm gonna feel this head. The head feels cold. The head feels nice and cold on this little teeny 9.9 motor. You're not gonna really have a lot spewing out. On like a 150 or something, it's gonna be jetting out because the motor's bigger and it's holding more water. But we're gonna run it and keep monitoring this head right here. And you can see the faster he's got it going. That's a nice solid stream right there. And actually the head's getting colder to the touch now while I run it. And don't forget that water that's in that bucket, it's gonna get hot over time. So if that head's nice and cool now, when you're in the river, when you're in that lake, or in the ocean or bay or wherever, that water's gonna be constantly a lot cooler than what we're running in this bucket. And this head right now feels great. Nice and just slightly warm. It's not getting hotter. I can feel it, otherwise my hand would have just burned up. And I'm liking the stream, and I'm liking the heat temperature that's coming off this water. You can see it, it's steaming. So we're good, man. I think we got it, and hopefully that helps you guys out as far as that water pickup tube. And the culprit for on our kit, the kit was right on this 9.9, but this is a 1997 Mercury 9.9. You can get that tube, if you take it out, you can get an extended, an extra long. This is a long shaft 9.9. You get an extra long pickup tube. It's a couple more inches longer, and you'll alleviate that stupid add-on that we put on the top of the water pump. Remember, we had to cut those little cracks off because whoever did this motor last crammed it up in there and broke the bottom out, which pushed down on the propeller seal where it comes right there, and over time it dry rotted. So this is put together now. We're not gonna mess with it. We're gonna run it up the river, and but I'm gonna order one of those longer shaft, or the longer tubes, pickup tubes for this long shaft motor. They're called an extra long pickup tube, water pickup tube. And I'm just gonna put it in the shop and keep it around. And next time we do this impeller, we're not gonna fight with that damn little piece anymore. We're gonna put the extra long shaft or tube on there for this long shaft 9.9, and it's gonna be up to date. And if someone would have told us that in any videos that we checked out or anybody we talked to, it'd have been so much easier. But if you can't get a hold of one of those, hopefully we showed you what to do with that water pickup tube. 9 times out of 10 it's an impeller, but you know what? It's almost everything in there. It's junk. It's just rubber. It's cheap. And you're running it hard and you're beating it up, and then wintertime comes, if you live in a colder state, and it gets hard, and then it gets hot and soft again and hard, and it just can't take it. So, you know, we're out of here. We're gonna keep working on this thing and showing you more and more that we do to it, and fuel lines and things like that. So get you some of it, get some of it. I'm Keith, that's June. Two Guys How-Tos and the Fish Kings with a Z. And we're out of here. Make sure you give us the thumbs up, give us those likes, share it around to family and friends. And more importantly, subscribe. We always got stuff coming up. Like I said, we haven't even scratched the surface of what we're gonna do. And it's crazy. But hopefully this helps you, and let us know. Love it. See ya.
Yeah, she's a pissin'.
Cut. It's cussing and hollering. We're just gonna use it as a blooper. This blows. I'm about ready just to take gas and pour it on this whole thing, and then take the Bobcat to it and just crush this whole thing down. Cut. Okay, guys.
One of those big tall fish cranes, we call it a Maryland flamingo.
I'm not a pig, I'm a lawyer.